Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you give us your questions and we do our very best to give you some answers. And this week is no different. We're coffeed up, ready to go. But before we kick on, let's remind you how you can get on the show and get involved.
Yeah, give us a call. 013 808 00035 is the number you need. 013 808 00035. Or go to propertyhub.net/ask. Leave us a voicemail there instead and follow in the fine footsteps of our first questioner today, Cassie.
Hi Rob and Rob, my name's Cassie. Thanks so much for your podcast. I'm really enjoying listening to them and they're really helpful for inspiring me. My question is, can you explain how to use a home buyer's survey to renegotiate the price? I've had a survey done and it says the property needs a lot of repairs. The estate agents have asked what the valuation is and even want a copy of the whole report. So if they know what the valuation is, presumably the vendor won't take anything less than that, even if there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And if the valuation is higher than the agreed price, presumably then they won't negotiate down any further either. Would you give the estate agents a copy of the report? Any advice would be great. Thanks. I look forward to hearing your tips on this.
Thank you, Cassie. First of all, I think we should explain what a home buyer's report is. It's a survey that you have done on a property. Now, there are typically 3 different types of survey you can go for. You can go for a valuation survey, which, as you can imagine, just gives you the valuation. The home buyer's survey is a bit further on from that. So it will give you a valuation, which is important for the question that Cassie has asked. It gives you that valuation, but it also, as you've heard, gives you information about the property, things that possibly need attention and looking at. There's a fair amount of detail in there, but for some people, they're really nervous and they get a full structural survey. And that will give you everything that the 2 other surveys give you, but with all the bells and whistles on top. So they really dig in and they should list every single thing that's wrong with that property. So they're the different types of surveys, and Cassie has gone for a home buyer survey. What's interesting is in the way you phrased your question, Cassie, it sounds like you don't know the valuation. But go back to your report and look, because it will be in there. And then that will help you answer this. Because if the valuation is lower than what you've negotiated, plus you've got a list of repairs that need to be made because of things that are wrong with the property, that is a negotiation tool. It is a tool and not a guarantee. So you're going to have to be prepared that it may not get you a discount, but use it and see what happens. And if you feel with the work that's needed and the price you're currently paying that it just doesn't work for you, well then be prepared to walk away. You may be emotionally attached to this property. If it's a property you're going to live in, then that's a bit different. But if it's a buy-to-let, you should be prepared to walk away from the deal, even at this late stage, if you think it's too much and the numbers don't work. Now, if you look at that report and the valuation comes in at what you've agreed or even higher than what you've agreed, then the vendor could argue that, well, actually, look, we knew that there was a few bits and pieces wrong here. We priced it accordingly, and you've got yourself a good deal because of these things that are needed. Now, whether they knew about it or not, that's what a smart agent and vendor would say. Your job is a lot harder now, and you're going to have to make that difficult choice. But ultimately, it comes down to you. You should know your numbers. You should know if it works for you or not at the current price. And if you can get a bit more off by negotiating, if the valuation is a bit lower, then great. But it's a case of going back, doing your numbers, seeing if it works. And if it still works at the price you're agreeing to pay, then fantastic. But if it doesn't, then you might just have to walk on.
Yeah, Rob's put his finger on it there. You've now got more information, so you can basically rethink the deal from the start in the light of the information that you've now got. If it doesn't work for you anymore because something's changed, then you have to go and try to renegotiate the price. If the vendor won't renegotiate the price, then all you can do is walk away. It feels painful at the time because you've put effort in, you put some money in to get this survey done. But ultimately, as we've talked about recently on the podcast, walking away is often the best decision that you can make. It really will come down to how keen the vendor is to sell. If they're desperate to move on, then they shouldn't have too much of a problem. If they're a bit ambivalent anyway and they think they can hold out for a better deal, maybe they won't budge. You can point out that whoever buys in future will have the same survey done and they will come back with exactly the same points and the same thing will happen again. So ultimately they should take your deal, but that's not something you can control. So if it doesn't work out, move on to the next one. It won't be easy at the time, but in a few years' time, you'll be very thankful that you did.
So next up, we've got Matt, and Matt is a little unhappy with his letting agent.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Matt here. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to you guys for everything you put out there, all of the free content. I found it really useful on my property investment journey. In terms of my question, I'm having a bit of a dispute with the letting agent at one of my properties. The tenants currently in place have just given notice to leave, and the letting agents are telling me because of the tenant fees ban that's come in, they now need to charge me a setup fee to get new tenants in. However, this isn't written down anywhere in the agreements I've got with the letting agent, and there's no sort of clause in there allowing them to introduce any additional fee of this sort. Normally I just pay a percentage of the rent each month, and that covers pretty much everything. So I've gone back to the agent and said, well, there's no basis for you to charge that. And they've now come back saying that actually they review the agreements with their landlords between each tenant changeover, and these are the new terms they're offering. So any advice you can offer on that would be greatly appreciated. Am I within my rights to avoid paying any setup fee with this agent, or will I be forced to amend the agreement I've got with them and take that on? Thanks very much for your help.
Matt, you are not alone. This kind of thing is happening all over the country at the moment. Letting agents are introducing new fees. They're increasing existing fees. They're going out of business completely. We've heard about this so much, and all because of the fee ban. All those juicy fees that they were putting onto tenants because the tenants had no choice have now got to be made up from somewhere. And where's that going to come from? You. So what can you do about it? Well, it's difficult to say because we haven't seen the full agreement, and it will come down to the detail of the wording. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they've drafted it in such a way that they can pretty much do whatever they like. Normally with letting agents, it's the case that the agreement that you've got remains valid for the remainder of the existing tenancy, but then when a new tenancy begins, all bets are off, you sign a new agreement, and by that point, things might have changed. It's possible that they haven't drafted it in that way, and in fact, they can't increase their fees. So ultimately, it's going to come down to how much you want to continue with this agent versus switching, and how much they want your business. If you're actually quite happy to move agents if you need to, then you could dig your heels in and say, no, I'm not going to pay that. It's the same deal as before, or it's nothing. Then there's a good chance that they'd rather have the business than not have it at all, and they'll agree to that. But they might not, in which case you'll need to either mount an embarrassing climb down or move to a different agent. The issue that I think you'll have is that all agents are putting up their fees. So wherever you go, you might not get a better deal. At Property Hub Lets, we saw this coming a long way off, and we didn't think it was right to charge a lot to tenants in the first place. So we actually haven't put up our fees. But almost every other agency I've seen has been putting up their fees. And if they haven't, I'm sure they will do over the next few months as reality starts to bite. So maybe before you do make a decision on this one, have a look at the market, see what else is available in your local area, and see if you could get a better deal elsewhere. If you can, then it might be worth playing hardball. But if not, even though it's not nice to pay more for the same thing, maybe you'll just have to accept it.
So thank you, Cassie. Thank you, Matt. I hope that leaves you better off. And I hope you listening, you've learnt as well. There's lots in there. But until Thursday and next Tuesday when we'll be back with Ask Rob and Rob, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.